age. My parents were older, and I went through school, I went through life, and I got my GED. And in 2010, I was put out on my own because apparently I was too lazy and depression wasn't real. And since then, I've had good parts of my life and bad parts of my life, but I've been in a cycle of homelessness and mental and physical abuse my whole life, trying to get out of this perpetual cycle. And I'm Yang Gang, and I advocate for eradicating poverty. I'm especially thinking that it's important that we help homeless youth because I feel like that's something that doesn't get discussed. And I'm just here to try to figure things out with everybody.
All right, that's awesome. And thank you, Gabby. Um, so let's just start off with how you came around to finding out who Andrew Yang is and what his message is and what he is standing for.
Yes.
So how did you come out to find Andrew Yang and his cause and his running for presidency?
Well, I happened to be on Twitter, and of course, I was having trouble with Trump because I didn't vote. I have yet to vote. Um, and at first, when I heard that everybody heard, oh, Trump was running for president, so he never has a chance. Well, he became president, and at first I thought his ideas were great, and I thought everything was great. Well, we all got to that point where we realized, okay, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And I came across Andrew Yang on Twitter, and I saw that he wants to give people $1,000 a month. And I immediately clicked, of course, like who isn't going to click at $1,000 a month?
Of
So I
course.
clicked it, and I did a little research, and I learned it was more than just $1,000 a month. It was about helping the normal people. And since then, I just become engrossed in his policies and just everything about him. Everything. And it's just been kind of a struggle because when you try to talk about it, it's hard to talk about. So and I've never been kind of like a political person, but it changed me completely. Like I ended up when I found out that I liked Andrew Yang, I was curious. I was like, I never really had I didn't know if I was Democrat or Republican. So I did this really nice test online that, you answer all these questions and it tells you percentages and what kind of things you stand for. And it turned out that I was 68% Democrat. So I was like, okay, so maybe I'm really a Democrat, but that didn't matter to me really. But when I found that out and I was reading up more and becoming educated, that's when I saw, like, yeah, these are real problems. We have an outdated system, and everything he was just saying, it just makes sense. Like it almost felt like when he was talking through me. Like I had said so many of the things and ideas that he have said, I have said growing up, like since 2010, since Obama. A lot of the things he says, a lot of the ideas he has, like it was just like it was resonating from him, like from me and him. Like it just was like, this is what I've been looking for. I thought I would never hear somebody say these things, and that's what just led me on this whirlwind of, wow, I've got to learn more about this guy. I've got to see if I can make this happen. I've got to mention him whenever I can.
Well, I think that about says it. That's pretty much how I came across him, except I came across him through social media, but it was through Facebook. I wasn't like a Twitter user or anything like that. Like I have an Instagram that I ever barely ever use.
Yeah.
So but I think that is very similar to everyone else's experience, but it's always interested to find out um how people came across to knowing about Andrew Yang and his presidency. It's always interesting because everyone has their stories and everybody has their policies that they found out about him after the UBI, which, the UBI is the foundation to his policies and everything else pretty much comes together, it connects. So it's always interesting. It's like Andrew Yang says, there's nothing like the first time, right?
Yeah, he makes it feel fresh. He makes it feel like these old things aren't working for us. And I'll say it, we need a way forward. Like there's some things that are great that our founding fathers put in place that keep things good in the way they're supposed to be, but then there's things that we need to change to help, are the future, our future children and ourselves. Like, how can we as a country get ahead when mental health is declining, shootings are increasing, radicalists and all this stuff? I think it all boils down to money. Like, it all boils down to people feel scarcity. Like, I'm in danger. What am I going to do next? Like, this is hanging over my head. Oh my gosh. And people get to that breaking point, and I think that's where people make bad decisions. That's where people do get into drugs and get into and become angry and violent, and there's just the problems stack. And I feel like if we can just start from the base and move up, we can improve a lot of things. Like, it may take time, but that's why I really love a lot of Yang's policies, because it's not traditional like what you usually hear. It's not the same old stuff you just want to turn the news off because you can't stand it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that you and I can both agree on, because we're both parents, we're both mothers, um, is that it's kind of ridiculous to, basically expect a mother, especially one with a newborn or one that's barely walking, to automatically just break that bond with their child as soon as a child
Yeah,
is born, because they have
yeah.
to go out and get a job. And, then you worry about childcare. And it's
uh,
not just about the money with childcare. It's about, is my child safe with this person?
yeah. Like, I would
You
rather
know,
my child not go into daycare until my child can speak and tell me what happened today. If my
exactly.
if my like, I'm going through social services now, and I just got approved for TANF, which isn't a lot, but I'm about to be
How
calling
much
and
do you
trying to
get
get
for
approved for
TANF, if you
daycare.
don't mind me asking?
I get $275 a month for TANF,
And that's,
and I'm
what is that? Is that cash?
they put it on a debit card. It's called Way to Go card, and I get
Right,
food
but
stamp. I
can you pull money out from that TANF card?
Yeah, it's basically like any other debit or gift
Oh,
card. You can use it at ATM.
but it's not like food stamps where you're limited to how you can actually spend it.
No, it's not limited. Like, food stamps
Okay.
would only be food products, yes.
Right.
But the
So
daycare worries me.
the TANF would cover like diapers and baby wash and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, the TANF I could use for anything. Like, to be honest, like the TANF I could pull out the money, I could do anything with it. But of course, we know what I would be using it for. My daughter, and what we need to when I need to keep myself together and her together. So
So you
it's
said
not.
they only give you how much in that?
They give me $275 in the city that I'm in now. When I was in a different city, they gave me $289. So for
Okay.
some reason,
How
it's
much is your
changed.
food stamps?
It is $318 a month.
So that's about $600, right? Give or take, maybe a
Yes.
little under.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So wow. So I can imagine that $1,000 straight up cash would be a net gain for you.
Yes, it would be a game changer. I'd have a lot more choices in what I'm doing, where I am, especially like, not saying I can't depend on people, but I've been in a lot of situations where I've pretty much having to given my EBT up, given my welfare up to be able to survive, because when people see me, especially men, oh, you don't have nothing to give. What can you give me? Or what can I, uh, you probably know what it is. It's like people take
Yeah.
advantage of you or look down at you like you've never had your life together. Like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's like you have to bow down to somebody. Like, somebody doesn't just offer to help you. They help you and control you. Like, they don't, and then you're starting to get some traction, and then all of a sudden you're to the curb again. Something doesn't go their way. So it's like I'm under control of everybody around me because I don't have the the finances to be able to protect myself. Like if I feel like I'm in danger, I can't even depend on calling a shelter to go to, because I've contacted shelters around here and they just refer me to other homeless shelter numbers, and then it's like I don't know how, and then they don't have any room, and then I think I have a phobia for shelters for real, because I have been in a homelessness cycle since I was 18. So I have a phobia and I have abandonment problems, and I just try to avoid that shelter as much as I can, and it feels like I shouldn't have to feel so scared for my life like that. Like I've got to like be exploited almost to be able to survive, or I've got to do what somebody says. I have no peace of mind. and I barely have any money, so it's like, oh, she's got a little bit. I'm going to take that little bit from her anyway. So it's like I get money, but what am I gonna do with that? I don't have the money for transportation. I don't have the daycare to go get a job. My child's about to be 6 months old. I'd rather my child be able to speak before she goes to daycare. So it's just a mess. Like, it's all just a mess. And it's like we're looked down upon, like, if you're a single mother, like, oh, you shouldn't have made that choice. You shouldn't have had a child.
Well, you know what gets me in society is how what gets me in society is how there's so many so-called safety nets and programs,
Hmm.
and they're supposed to help us, right? And they're so limited,
They
you
are.
know, and they're so limited, and they expect you to be able to pull yourself back up from your bootstraps.
Yep, they do.
And it just makes better sense to allow women, like, okay, we had children, we decided to have kids, it's our responsibility, right?
Yes.
But it should, they say that it's a human right. It should be a human right for someone to at least have their meals. I mean, prisoners, people in jail, they
Yes.
get 3 meals a day, and it may not
Yes.
be the best meal, but they get to eat. They don't go to sleep hungry. They have a cot that they get to sleep in, you know, and
Yes.
and
My
it's
my
just sad
ex-boyfriend that
that,
abused me told me before, he said going to jail would be like a vacation because I don't have to do nothing and everything's given to me.
yeah, it's just sad that as a woman with a child, you're not afforded the same luxury of at least having a safe place for you and your kid.
Yes.
And they
Yes.
expect you to go out and get a job, but then they expect someone else to get paid to watch your child.
Mhm.
And then you
Yeah,
have to go through the day with anxiety about whether or
that
not my child
stress
is
is
safe,
overwhelming. Yes.
especially when your kid can't tell you what is or isn't going on. So
I
it's
know.
scary, and it
It's
adds
very
to the
scary.
anxiety that you already have.
Like, how can I sufficiently, like, I already give my daughter my whole heart, my whole everything, but I want to give her more. I'm not saying I'm mentally sick or anything, but can you imagine how much better life would be with that feeling like, okay, I am enough. I can do this. We will be okay. But instead it's more like having to worry about everything else but the main picture, like the people you love, like the person that you're caring for, the person that is your life. It's like you almost have to make a choice outside of that, like you're scrambling, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen tomorrow? I can't even go to sleep. What am I going to do about this? What am I doing about that? Oh my gosh, do I have to send somebody pictures to give $5 for diapers? It's insane. Like, it makes you may feel like I have to give up my dignity as a mother to provide for my child, like, or that I have to always give my explanation to my situation and people come back and say, oh, you're giving excuses, it's her
Or
fault.
they'll rub it in your face
Yeah.
the second that something doesn't go their way with you. And
Yeah.
the other crazy part about that whole situation is not particularly saying in your case, but in some other people's cases, um, some women have to go and they have to put their bodies out there. They have to strip for a living
Yeah.
just to put food on the table or to keep the heat on in the winter.
Yeah.
And those type of jobs, well, occupations, they get looked down upon a lot. And
I
it's understandable, but don't you think $1,000 a month would actually maybe sway somebody away from doing it, or at least doing it
self-esteem
as often?
self-esteem would go way up. Self-esteem for me, like, I haven't been stripped or anything, but I've done things to get money. But it's like the self-esteem would go up. I would feel motivated and I would feel like, okay, I can at least afford, like, $1,000, not a lot. I couldn't maybe afford a hotel for $1,000 a month, but at least that gives me a place that I can go and be safe. I have something that I can do with that. It feels like like you're supposed to magically, poof, I'm successful. And then if you don't have a lot, if you don't have anything, you just looked at like trash, like, oh, there's some must be something she did wrong to be in this situation. Like, oh, what kind of person is she? I can't trust her because she's been homeless. Like, I've come across that a lot. Like, oh, you've been homeless? Oh, you're adopted because I was adopted, and they never liked me. I was always the black sheep, and there's another big story to that, but it's like, oh, what did you do so bad to be in that situation? You must, and I never partied, I never drank in high school, I never smoked, I never did anything wrong. I had depression in school really bad. I started skipping school and going on the internet. That was my way. I would go to the library, I'd walk to the library, and I felt like I had a community on the internet, and I wasn't allowed to have a life outside of school. I wasn't allowed to hang out with friends. So I was very depressed in school. And when my parents were older, like they were in their 40s when I was adopted, when the adoption was finalized, but I had been a foster child with them since I was 6 months. And it was like the whole time growing up, it's like I had ADHD. So the whole time growing up is like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you be like everybody else? Why don't you want to be something? You're not depressed. You've always had everything. And then when I got my GED, because it got to that point where I was skipping so much, I even got in trouble. And they put me in a, that kid jail where they sent you to the kid jail. I went there twice for 10 days. And after that, my parents were already fed up, and they said, you have X amount of time to get a job. And I don't know if you remember, but in 2010 with Obama, I swear, I live in a decent city. I was living in Chesapeake, Virginia, and I applied for every store I could think of, and it took it probably took me a year to find a job. And then when I got the job, it was at a Office Depot, and I was doing the training. It was my very first job, and apparently I did the training too slow, and they fired me before I could even work. And then I got lucky. I met a friend. I was working at a billing company for 4 years. I got my life together. I got a car, and it goes from there. But it's like I lifted myself up out of that depression through Buddhism, and I was able to get past that part, but it was always that thing over my head like, you don't do what we say, you're homeless, you're on the street. So it was like I've always been misunderstood as somebody else than who I really am. And it was like I was always making excuses, but it was like no matter what I did, and when I found out that, because I thought, well, I'm adopted, maybe there's some kind of special thing for people who are adopted, not in Virginia. Apparently, in New York, there's benefits to people who were in the foster system or been adopted. But when I found out that there was nothing for me for being adopted, that was just a soul crusher. And I know Chinese and Japanese, and I wanted to become a translator. And my parents had a lot of, like, my parents weren't rich, but they were upper middle class, like nice house, nice everything. And I had an opportunity to study abroad and finish high school in Japan. And when they told me that that wasn't going to happen, I had to make it happen myself. My depression like skyrocketed. Like everything since then in my life felt like wow, like everything just went from there. Like it really started from the depression, and then how they put me out and they called it tough love, and all the stuff that their reasoning behind it, and how the age difference, they didn't understand that, hey, it's not like it used to be. You can fill out all the resumes you want, but they say, oh, go store to store, go in there, dress nice and do this and do that. But once everything got to the internet, it's like, because of no discrimination, it's like they don't even know who they're calling. Like they're just you know what I mean? Like it's not like it used to be.
Well, if we could back up a little bit, you said that you were basically adopted. Was it foster care or was it an official adoption?
Um, I was um I was in foster care when I was 6 months old. My biological family, obviously, they had problems with drugs, and the whole reason that I went into foster care, when they found me, I was in soiled diapers, spoiled milk bottle. I was almost dead, basically. But CPS took me and my sisters and my brother, and I was put into foster care at 6 months. and my adopted parents fought for the adoption. When I was 5, their parental rights were totally terminated. I guess every time they got a chance to make things right, they never could. Maybe it was because of the drugs, but yeah,
So
I
you're
was.
talking about your
Uh,
biological parents?
yeah, my biological parents, they were just those kind of people. Like they were not there. Like they apparently had mental issues and a big drug abuse issue. So I
So
never really.
basically what you're saying is that you you never really had a chance
Yeah,
because
basically.
had Department of Children and Family Services, had they not taken you from your parents, you probably would have died in the condition that you were found in.
Mhm.
But even if, like, say you survived, right?
Mhm.
There's a chance that you probably would have grown up a lot worse than what you grew up in the condition that you are now.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm blessed for that, definitely. Like I had a lot growing up. Like my parents had money. I had amazing Christmases. I had the material stuff. I didn't have the emotional stuff, if that makes sense.
Okay. So the other thing that I want to touch on that is the fact that you've been in foster care the entire time, from when you were even under a year old. And you basically at some point aged out of that and you were pretty much on your own.
Well, when
So,
I was 5, I was officially adopted by the people who had fostered me. So they adopted me. The foster parents that had me when I was a baby, and they have finalized the adoption was finalized when I was 5. So I always, they were mommy and daddy to me. When my mother had told me when I was 7 that I was adopted, it didn't faze me. So I never really had any emotional bond or any worry about my biological family.
okay. But at some point, you had to have aged out of the system where you were literally out on your own, right?
Yes.
Being 18.
Yes, that was the thing. That was the thing is you're 18, we don't have to do nothing for you anymore. It was like they were always throwing that in my face like you don't get birthdays, you don't get Christmas, you don't get nothing. You're on your own.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, the thing about that, and that's why it kind of clicked in my head just now, is Andrew Yang's freedom dividend is for people who are 18 and over.
Yep.
In that situation, you being 18 and on your own, if there was a freedom dividend or a UBI held down in that time, you would have
Yes.
been okay.
Yes, I would have. I would have definitely been able to pursue my dreams better. I wouldn't have had to deal with all the mental issues and problems and trauma that had come along with the abandonment. I don't have a real diagnosis, but I seriously think I have agoraphobia, which is a fear of abandonment because of what I've been through. And so, I mean, yeah, if the dividend had existed in that time, I would have had hope. There was a lot of anger distilled in my heart from from being abandoned like that because it was like I wasn't a person. It was like I was abandoned, like I was an object to men, like I had to be with somebody to be something, like I had to scramble all the time. That's the way it felt. That's actually the way it's felt for the past 10 years. I'm 28 now. So, it's
Well,
always
that
felt like.
you've only been on, well, you're 28, so about 10 years ago you were 18.
Yes.
So you've been, struggling with a whole lot even before that. But as an adult, you've been put through pretty much the ringer, right?
Yeah, like I've been just a lot of people, some of my friends have been saying like I've been dealt a bad hand. That's what I get that a lot. I was dealt a bad hand. So,
Mm. Well, everybody at some point's been dealt a raw deal. You know what I mean? And
hmm
I got stories for days about things that I was involved with, or things that happened that should never had to happen. And I think that that is true for everybody. Like, um, my father was an alcoholic,
Yeah.
and he's not well now. Like, I don't have a relationship with him. He's not well now and hasn't been well for a while. He's kind of, I think he might have had some type of injury to his head that causes him to kind of spaz out and just not
Yeah.
be a good person to be around. But
You mean like DTs, right?
huh?
It's called DT. I don't remember the real technical term for it. It's when DTing is something that happens to people. Like let's say a person who's an alcoholic is hospitalized and
Mm.
they don't give you beer and things like that in the hospital. They freak out because their body is so accustomed to having that alcohol. It's like a need they
Well,
have,
it
kind
would
of like
be,
a withdrawal.
yeah, it would be similar to a withdrawal, definitely. But you know, he was just like he was an angry person,
Yeah.
abusive even. And you know, I don't remember a whole lot about everything. I mean, I remember some things, but you know, as kids, you know, we're gonna grow up and be adults too. And it's very true that we are kind of like a product of our environment.
Yeah.
And you know that just plays along with mental health, you know, like a lot of us have been dealt with situations that we've overcome, and it's great because it's like, okay, we live to fight another day. But at what point do you get tired of fighting?
If it wasn't for me maintaining, I'm not going to say I'm childish, but my personality can be, I get along with children and I have a childlike personality, if that makes sense. Like I'm generally jolly. I'm really happy. So a lot of times when I was going through all this stuff trying to get help, people look at me and say, "Oh, she can't be going through anything. She's always happy all the time." But it's like because I
Well,
held on to that little bit of my childlike ways, I've become I've it's made me strong. Like I don't know why, but I've always just got through it. Like you said, keep fighting through it. Like I'm in the end at the end of the day, I'm just like a happy person. That's just my personality, but I do break down and everybody's going to break down. And then I'm blessed that I've learned so many lessons through these struggles, but it's also woken me up to a lot of things that makes it frustrating to explain to other people or to get people to understand like nothing is the way it looks on the outside with anybody. So,
yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure that a freedom dividend would have helped you a lot, you know, as you aged out of the system, especially because, of course, you know, beforehand you wouldn't be eligible for it. But as an 18-year-old out there in the world on your own and nobody else having your back, and you having to, you know, struggle and live from house to house, probably sleep from couch to couch, you know, and have to deal with certain people who really were self-serving in the way that they so-called helped you. And
yes,
if you had had the freedom dividend, I can't stress this enough, that would have helped you in your situation.
it would
And
have done immensely.
and it's not like the problem has gone away since then. There's other young ladies who have to deal with the same exact struggle you had to deal with and is still
Yeah.
going through. You know, and what about when you know what about the foster kids now who are
Yes.
in bad situations, more abusive situations with foster care than they were with their biological parents, you know? Like,
Yes.
I always think about the kids that were taken away from the parents just for something so frivolous like smoking marijuana.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And considering the fact of how it's legal in in a lot of different states, um, I believe in Massachusetts they just passed it for recreational use a couple years ago,
Oh wow.
and it's just crazy to me how something that is legal in different parts and you can just walk into a dispensary and purchase marijuana and walk out the door with it in your hand and walk past the cop and they can't do anything to you. It's ridiculous to me that parents are being put away in prison and their children are being taken away from them and put into foster care to be put in situations that are worse.
Yeah, and then I mean, that's gonna deteriorate the parents' health and their health, and that's gonna lead them down possibly bad roads
Well, the
in the
thing is
future.
that and I spent a good amount of time kind of sharing stories. Like I actually was helping a friend of mine run a Facebook page for child abuse victims.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you're familiar with baby Alyssa Guernsey.
What is that? I'm sorry.
Alyssa Beth Guernsey.
No.
Or okay. So backstory really quick. Um, Alyssa, she was in a household with her mother and siblings, and her father was the one that was working all the time.
Uh-huh.
And he used to work odd jobs, used to not get much sleep. So, long story short, he had died in a car accident, fell asleep behind the wheel. And my friend, and well, she's my friend now, and I met her through her story. So, she she was distraught. She was on her own. She had kids in the household, and some of the kids were half siblings, and she really didn't know how to cope with that. She didn't have a job because he was the one that was working, and she was home with the kids. She didn't have a job, and so other people meddled in and thought that she was going to have some type of breakdown and not be well enough to take care of her kids. So, long story short, Child Protective Services took her kids from her and had her children living with her cousin. Her cousin, whose name is Christy Schaefer, was abusing Alyssa.
Oh no.
Alyssa was only 16 months old. She was abusing Alyssa, pulling her hair, bruises, all types of scars, injuries, like just bad. And so Alyssa was only with Christy in her care or custody for about a little over 3 months. And within 3 months, Alyssa died.
That's a tragedy. Like that's so crazy. Like
And the worst
I
part about that is that Christy Schaefer only served 77 days in prison. Okay.
uh-huh.
There's a whole lot of other story going on with that. But, the other thing that I want to put out there is that this happened in and near the area of Indiana. It happened in Indiana, and that's Mike Pence's state, is it not? The vice president.
Uh-huh.
That's his
I
state.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he didn't do anything about it. Okay, and he
Of
was a
course not.
high-ranking official in that area. Did nothing about it. So that just tells you today how deep corruption and
Well,
the government goes.
yeah, I know what you're talking about with CPS because I actually want to touch on this too because this is recent for me. My ex was abusive, mentally and physically, but I continued to be with him because I wouldn't have had a place to live. Long story short, CPS came to my ex-boyfriend's house. Somebody had called CPS. Don't know who, don't know how, but his mother was like, "You guys stay hidden," and we were staying at this house that was not good living conditions to say the least. Like bad. Like CPS would come in there and it would be like bye bye. So she was saying hide, but I was like, no, this is the wrong thing to do. I want to know if she's being honest. So I had somebody come and pick me up and who was did used to be friends with my ex's family. She came and got me, and she took me to CPS. And they said, "Yeah, we did try to contact you." And they sat me down, and they were basically like, "You got to go get a protective order against him, or we're going to take your kid from you." And they were like, "You got to switch over all your shit." Excuse my language. You got to switch over all of your stuff from Virginia to North Carolina. Like they made me feel threatened. Like you do what we say, or we're going to take your kid. And then I don't know who called CPS. I don't know how, but I had to do the protective order. And then the girl who came and picked me up, come to find out, she said she was going to help me get on my feet. She's the one who took me to social services and trying to help me, get things situated since I had gotten into a car accident November 2nd. I got hit and so I didn't have a car. And so she took me in, and things were great the first week, and then things got weird. Like I would walk out of the room and they'd be whispering. Well, one night I was really close to the kids. Like the kids love me. I'm the playful one. They love the baby. They would come to me every day. They get off the bus, come and see me. Not mommy, not mommy. They come and see me. Well, one night I was I had I got into a fight with them because I said I feel like you guys are going to want to take advantage of me as soon as I get these food stamps, and they yelled at me and stuff. Well, that day when their kids came back from school, they noticed I was sad, and I was like, I'm sorry, babies, I'm just sad, and I made the mistake of saying, your mommy and daddy gave me 2 weeks and I've got to go, and obviously they asked their parents about it, and when their parents went to sleep that night, oh, they gave me the tell all. You know, kids don't have a reason to lie. They had been in the car and been around their parents, and they had said all kinds of crazy things like we're gonna like I already called social services, and that the kids told me that they were telling social services lies about me, and they were gonna steal my kid from me. So that night, I was like, I was freaked out. So I had pulled some strings. I got two friends, one person to send me $20, another person to send me $20, and one of my friends came and got me. But what broke my heart was Caitlin, one of their kids, told me, "I don't want you to go because I'm gonna have nightmares." And then Daniel told me, another one of Jennifer's sons said, "Ever since you've been here, things have been great. Daddy doesn't yell at mommy as much, and we don't get our asses whooped." And that broke my
Wow.
heart because I knew I had to go. Like I had to go, and I couldn't tell them. And they're like, and Daniel was so worried. Like, he was holding me like, please don't go. I love you. I don't want you to go. Everything's been really good since you've been here, and it broke my heart. Like you don't even know. Like I had to leave the babies behind because I get along with kids. I think better than adults because of my personality. So it broke my heart. But I had left that night at 12 at night, and just knowing that I was leaving them but it was for what was best for me and my daughter, and I was so scared because the social services people down there in CPS were made it seem like you do what we say or we're going to take your kids. So the first 12 hours that I had left, I didn't contact them to tell them of an address change because I was scared. Like I had never been in a situation with CPS. So finally, I manned up and I was like, I got to do the right thing. I don't want to feel like I'm going to take my kid to the doctor's office and the police are going to knock in the doors and come and take my baby. So I contacted them and I got it switched over to my city. And since then, everything has been good. Like they were really nice. They came to the house I was at and they checked it out and everything was good. They said that since it wasn't a report of abuse or neglect, that everything would be okay. But when I was in North Carolina, the system was outdated and I was put on some safety plan. And come to find out that it was my ex's family, my own baby dad's family, falsely contacted CPS, and they were in on it with the woman who came to save me, quote, and help me, quote, to take my child from me in the end. So I had to run away from all of that. So I feel like when I got back to Virginia, like I felt like, whew, thank God. Like that's what I've been dealing with lately. With that and coming back here and going through the city of Portsmouth, and I'm just trying now to get daycare, but I know the CPS thing is crazy. Like they had me like a deer in headlights with all of that. So,
Well, and that's the thing. And CPS can be a great tool as far as getting kids out of bad situations. But there are some things that make me wonder because like women like in your situation and women like in my friend's situation, you would think that they would take the measures of trying to house you, trying to make sure you had your resources, give you your food
mhm.
stamp card, give you a little, as disposable cash just for, diapers or whatever you need. And
They
you
didn't
would
give
think
me
that they
nothing
would have
until
had you
yesterday.
you would think that they would have had you in a program where they would come over and check you out and, just housing that they would give you. But
Mhm.
that's obviously not the case. They don't try to get you any counseling. They don't try to get you help. If you're a parent and you're on your own, a spouse dies, or you're just, SOL,
Mhm.
and the first thing that they go is threatening you. And then if you don't do what you're told, you automatically your kids are confiscated from you, and then you have to go through all of the other struggle to try to get them back. And that's the
Yeah, yeah, North
and
Carolina, Chowan County was like, you got to get counseling, but then where am I going to get the transportation? And then Chowan County, and I don't know if you're familiar with Elizabeth City, but that's almost an hour away from Edenton. And basically, if I did get a job or I did have to go to the counseling, if I was still down there going through CPS, I would have to pay $4 one way to ride an hour with my baby to go to counseling and $4 back. And then here, if I'm able to get transportation, they're going to give me HRT pass, which I don't know what city I would get a job in, but that could take hours to get to a job. So it's like they give you resources, but they don't really give you resources. Like they
Well,
expect
the
you to
thing
make
is,
appointments, do
it's
things.
like it's like they have resources, but they don't make it easy for you to get to those resources.
Yeah,
They're very far and in between. It's not like you have one that's 15 minutes away from where you're living,
yeah,
and it's not like they actually will send somebody to you. Like I know some systems, some states are different. Some states have more resource, some states don't.
yeah,
Um, but if you had a freedom dividend money at the time, you could have, taken that money and gotten you a transportation across town if you had to. Maybe call
yeah.
a Lyft or a Uber or something.
Or somebody that I knew, or some random like, hey, I'll give you so and so amount of money. You take me here, blah blah blah. I would have had that
Yeah,
option.
yeah. And then the other thing is like in my home state that I'm from, um, they do provide transportation. But in the state that I am in now, there is no transportation. So it's like different states vary with the resources that they have, and the government pulls in so much money, and it only kind of confuses me further to know that some states have more access to these programs than others, and it leaves a lot of people behind in the dark.
Yeah, they
It's
expect you
all
to
and
magically
that's like
have all these people.
all of the hoops that you have to go through,
Mm-hmm.
and for
And
what?
then
For
you're
a limited
responsible for
fund.
going behind other people.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
yeah,
no, no.
it was it was like, listen, I've lived in Virginia most of my life. Like I was receiving SNAP, right? But it's been more than one occasion. You know how you have, I don't know if you're familiar, but you have to do renewal every so and so months. But more than one occasion, they didn't even send me a renewal. So guess what? The time of the month rolls around, I can go get my groceries, zero balance. What? Oh, we sent you a letter in the mail.
Yeah.
Did you? I didn't get it. You got to reapply. You got to wait another month.
Yeah, and that's the same exact thing that Andrew Yang is trying to put an end to. Well, not really put an end to, but give you the choice of whether that's what you want to go through just to get a limited fund, or if you want to try the better way, which is get the universal basic income, opt into it. They give you the money and it's there no matter what. There's nobody that you have to call to find out what's going on. There's no redetermination forms that you have to fill out. It's just given, just like
But
that.
my, but it's also like it's like what do they expect you to do like with and they don't like for me like the 200 like I asked my excuse me, I asked the lady, I said, well, what if I'm trying to find a place to live instead of go to a shelter. If somebody offers me a room for $200 a month and I'm only getting $275, can you give me more monies to make up for that? It's like, no, there's only a certain amount of money you can get. I'm like, wow, you don't even base it on the incomes and costs at all? Like, what am I gonna do with this money? I'm already have been in situations where I've had to give up most of my welfare for things at times. So it's like I don't know what to do, and it makes and I'm definitely not like saying that there's a race issue, but I've noticed that since Trump has become elected, it's like I'm Caucasian, but it feels like white people have been put on the back burner with a lot of things. I feel like just on my experience that because I'm white that I'm not important. Like, if it's felt like that multiple times,
Well,
like in a lot of different situations.
I can't speak for your experience because I don't know where exactly and what's all the situation as far as how they have the income cap or how much funds they disperse to everybody individually. But I
Yeah.
know that if you've ever listened to Scott Santon's, are you familiar with Scott Santon's?
No, you'll have to send me that name so I can look into it again.
Scott Santon's is like Andrew Yang's right hand man. You know what I mean? He wrote a book on UBI. He's written many articles and blogs. He's a very much pro UBI advocate, and he speaks up a lot for Yang. Doing a lot of interviews and podcasts, to state the case for the UBI and for the freedom dividend and for Andrew. So Scott Santons has done a lot of speaking up about the welfare system and how
Yeah.
it traps you. And the one thing that he consistently says and advocates is, if a person is happy with the benefits that they're getting, it's okay to allow them to keep their benefits. But if a person feels like the benefits are inadequate for them, it should also be a choice to escape the welfare and move on to something better, which would be obviously the freedom dividend. So the other thing that he says and he feels very strongly about is, and there's a lot of data that, goes behind it, is that in certain areas where you live, certain towns, certain cities, certain, demographic, those areas get significantly less resources. They get significantly less funds in their benefits than
Yeah.
in other areas. So I don't know about the area that you were actually in, if it was predominantly white, predominantly Hispanic, or other. What kind of area was it that you were in?
Well, I'm from Chesapeake, Virginia. I'm currently living in Portsmouth, but I would say it's a predominantly black
Okay.
communities.
And you
As a,
see what that is. It's not like you weren't getting limited funds because you're white. You
uh-huh.
were getting limited funds because you're in an area that's predominantly not white.
Really? I never thought
Yes,
about that.
that is what it is. And I follow Scott Santons. I listen to his videos all the time, just as much as I listen to Andrew Yang videos. So I sometimes listen to his to his videos, the same ones over and over again, just to see if there's anything that I'm missing.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that he made very, very clear, is that welfare and the way they fund the resources and the programs, that's he says that it's kind of a racist system. He
Yeah.
confirms the racist schematics of the system. And because you were in a predominantly black area, and that is where you applied, and that is where your address was, that is why they gave you less money. That is why they wouldn't give you any more, because those certain areas, those specific areas, the system is already locked into a flat rate.
Yeah.
So if you were living in a different state, like say Connecticut,
Uh-huh.
do you know how much your food stamps would be?
No.
$350 at least, depending how many children in the household.
Wow.
And your TANF would have been $560 a month.
Wow, that is amazing. I have a
So
question for you.
if you lived in Connecticut, in certain areas in Connecticut, your food stamp money would be closer to how much you get from the freedom dividend, except it's 350 in food stamps and 560 in cash. So that puts you a little closer to that thousand than what you were offered. And it is
That's
because of the area that you lived in. So that only makes sense. And you've only confirmed for me what I already knew hearing from Scott Santons, that there are certain areas in the communities that they do give less funding, they do give less resources, and they're a lot stricter with their policies than in the predominantly white areas of the
my
United
goodness.
States. So I hope that clarified that for you.
I was always kind of curious of that. Like, I never for once would think that I would be stiffed because I'm white, but I never thought of that dynamic. Like, I was thinking, I was more so thinking that because I'm white, maybe they would help another group of people out more because
Mm-mm.
of that. but now I more so understand it. But one of the things about the freedom dividend that I have a hard time understanding and getting people to understand, which was the question I was going to ask, was people always have the argument that it would never be able to become a reality. Like that the freedom dividend is crazy because that it would never pass through Congress.
Well, the thing that, and I know that you're familiar with this, you have to be. The thing is that even yet Andrew Yang points out that that's just the way that the system is designed, you know?
Mhm.
So he understands the system completely. And there's not a lot of people that understand how it is designed and how it is stigmatized, how all the hoops that you have to jump through just to get a little bit of funding, but they control everything you do. They control what you eat. Like, have you ever been on WIC?
Yes.
Okay. If you've been on WIC before, you know that you're only limited to certain juices, certain cereals,
Yep.
certain cheeses that you can actually purchase in the dairy aisle.
Yeah.
Your milk, in some situations, or I think in most, in milk, you're only allowed to purchase like the 1% milk.
Yep. That's true for me.
Um,
Mhm.
and like for me, I'm Hispanic, and I love my beans and all that. So I can't get Goya beans with my wig, but I can go to the store and I have to get the dry beans in the bag, the ones that I have to make from scratch.
Yeah, it's like they
So
want
they
to.
don't give you very many options. Your eggs have to be the specific one that is WIC approved.
Yeah.
Your formula has to be WIC approved. So, like in my situation, my firstborn, she was very colic and a lot of gas. So, her doctor, told me get the soy-based formula. Now, to get it through the WIC program, I had to get a special doctor's note for that.
I had to do it too.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like if WIC does offer that it is an alternative with a doctor's note, why do I have to jump through the hoop of going to my physician, to my child's pediatric physician, and just to get a note to
It's
then
like they're
schedule
like,
an
prove it.
appointment, and go to WIC and say, here, I need soy base. And then they will still fight you on that and ask you
Yeah.
for extra things. That
Yep.
shouldn't be. I shouldn't have to deal with a colic baby or have to take money out of my pocket because WIC wants to be picky about what I can and cannot get with those WIC stamps. A thousand
Yep.
dollars a month would have remedied that instantly.
Yep. It's like when you're a woman, it's like for women, it's like I feel like I've got to find somebody. Like I don't like to use people, and I don't like feeling like I've got to be in a relationship to survive, but it feels like like I don't want to be with anybody. Like after all I've been through, I'm not in the emotional state nor the financial state to do so. But I feel my self-esteem and everything is so low. Like I feel like nobody would ever like a basically homeless person like me. Like I feel like I'm not good, like I'm not enough, like I'm just somebody in rags, like that's not worth anything. It makes me feel like, oh, I gotta find somebody to take care of me, but I'm able to take care of myself, but I don't have what I need, the basic things that I need. If I had the freedom dividend, I could go and do those things mentally, physically take care of myself and my child. So
All right, so it's gonna be almost about an hour and I'm gonna take it in. But before I let you go, I just want to ask you, if you were getting a freedom dividend, what would you do for money, like side income, like money that you can get on top of your freedom dividend? What would you do for the money? What would you do?
well, the first thing I would do is I think I would invest. I know it may sound silly, but I would probably invest in a sewing machine. I think that I would make clothes and make things that I could sell and maybe make a business out of that. And then from that, if I generated enough money from that, I would probably pursue my initial dream, which would be to be a translator, to teach English um, to people in a different country, because that was my initial dream, my initial
Well,
motivator.
you want to know what's interesting about that is that Ryan, um, my partner that I just did the last podcast with, he actually put me on to a internet-based work from home type of job.
Mhm.
And if you have a laptop, of course, but what it is that you basically would get hired as a tutor, and you would be talking to people from different areas of the world, whether it's in a
Mhm.
different country and whatever. And there's people who pay to have a conversation with you, and
Really?
basically, like, if they want to learn about your culture, or if they want to learn about a different culture, if you have knowledge, if they want to learn English, or if somebody wants to learn Japanese or whatever you know how to speak, you actually sit down and have conversation with them. And I think they pay like 17 cents a minute, and within an hour you would make like $10.20. And you can actually clock in and clock out, like basically log in and log out. And however much you get paid gets generated based on the time that you spend talking to that person from a whole nother
And
part of the world.
that's my passion is, I mean, I'm not going to say I don't have a lot of skills, but one of the things that I'm passionate about and gets me excited is learning languages. I mean, I'm not fluent in Japanese because I moved on to Chinese, but if I do Chinese, Japanese, and I'm learning Spanish. So I'm just, one of my talents is I'm very good to pick up languages. I've always wanted to do something with foreign people because I don't know if it's because of my situations or what, but I feel like I've had better relationships with foreigners than with Americans. Like, I don't know why, but I want to become a translator or do something in terms of that. That would be a game changer for me if I could. Not the money is important, but to do something that is engaging and does something for my mental health and makes me happy. That's the whole thing too. Like, that would be
Even if it
amazing.
was talking to strangers from across other
But I already
countries,
do that.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
there's just
and getting paid to do so on a laptop.
yeah.
That would make
Yeah,
it easy for you, at least until you can figure out your next move.
I gotta
And
get a
let's
laptop
say
first.
if you decide you make good enough money doing something on the side on top of getting your universal basic income, you could actually travel to other areas and continue your
Yeah.
work wherever you want to.
Yes.
So I could see how that dividend would mean a lot of change for you in a positive light. You already find it therapeutic to talk to other people and engage with other people and have intellectual conversations with people. I mean, I could see that being something that would, definitely boost you up, not just financially, but, mentally.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what your situation, if you have a laptop or a computer or access to one,
I don't.
but
My laptop got stolen and sold, so
oh, okay. Well, I have to invest in one too because I'm seriously thinking about taking that up. But something like that, if you had your universal basic income, you can easily afford your laptop.
of course.
You can
Yes.
easily afford your laptop, and you can easily afford to take the time to have those intelligent conversations with people from across the world. And
Make a
you'd
difference.
be also helping someone else.
Yes.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that company, that internet-based company, they actually pay every week. I think every Monday you would get paid from it. So I mean, that would be awesome. So I think that in universal basic income, the freedom dividend would definitely change your life for the better, and for the life for your daughter.
Yes, that's the main thing.
All right. So it was really nice to have this conversation with you, and I'm really happy that you were able to tell your story. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I'm just really happy that this is the first time that I've been able to talk with somebody else on a more serious level about Yang. Um, I've been very encouraged by Andrew Yang that there is hope. I'm fearful of a lot. It gives me a lot of hope, but also a lot of anxiety because all my life it's been like, here's your chance. Oh, we're gonna take it from you. So I'm hoping like
Yeah, just
that
like when you
we'll
do
wake
better,
up.
right?
Yeah, like we have the potential. We can do this. It's just sometimes you just are so far in the hole that one hand can bring you up, but that one hand can also put you back down. I want to be my own hand. Like I want to do that for myself one day. Like I want to get out of that. I want to be able to feel like I can trust people again, so I can trust myself even more. Like that I can make it in life. So.
Well, I really appreciate having you on the podcast tonight, and I really hope that this happens for everybody, for you, for me, for everyone, for our children, for the future. It would really make a huge, huge impact and change for everybody. So again, thank you so much, Gabby, for sharing your story and being so open.
And thank you so much, Naomi. You have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye bye.